So in Sufism, the path of love speaks of extraordinary love that consumes the self entirely, and like the moth that drawn to the flame and losing itself in the fire of the love. So in your teaching, you often emphasize the sacredness of ordinary experiences and the simplicity of the awareness in each moment. So I just wanted to see like how these two approaches intersect or even complement each other,
Yes,
if they
okay.
do.
Yes, so the attraction that the moth has for the flame is in the context of your question, the context of Sufism, is our longing for God, our longing for union. And that is felt by the moth as love. It feels like the moth's devotion for the flame. This longing that the moth has for the flame. And then the moth merges with the flame, becomes one with the flame. That's the experience of love, in which the moth no longer exists as a moth. So until the merging takes place, the moth is in a state of longing. When the merging takes place, that is love. So it's not that the moth loves the flame or that the individual loves God. It's because in love there are not two things. That's what love is, the absence of two, the absence of other. So the moth seeks love. It doesn't love, it seeks love. It has this intuition. Why does the moth have the intuition of love? Because love is its nature. So that the infinite leaves a trace of itself in the moth as the remembrance, the knowledge of love. But that love is veiled by the moth's thoughts and feelings. So the moth lives in a state of longing, a longing for love. So the moth approaches the flame. To begin with, when it gets close to the flame, it then has this, as long as it's longing for the flame, it's fine. Because it can continue to be a moth, as long as it's longing for the flame. But when it gets just a few inches away from the flame, it has this recognition. I cannot have what I want. If I achieve what I want, at that moment I cease to be a moth. And then it backs off. It thinks, oh no, I'm going to die. In order to experience love, I must die. And then it backs off again. But when it backs off, it's miserable. Because all it wants is, so then it approaches the flame again. All I want is the flame. I long for the flame. I long for God. And then you get 3 inches away from the flame. You can translate this into 3 inches away from the flame again. It has this recognition. I cannot experience love. I can only die in love. And then he gets afraid. So it does this dance of longing and fear. Longing for union, fearing union. Longing for the flame, fearing the flame. So it does this dance back and forth. The individual does this dance back and forth, longing for union, and then the fear of dissolution, and then at some point, through understanding or grace, or understanding is just another word for grace, that the moth takes the leap and merges with the flame, and that is the experience of love. And it's what Rumi meant when he said, in the existence of your love, I become non-existent. This non-existence linked to you is better than anything I ever found in existence. So what would be the equivalent here of this? I think this is your question. What would be, in our terminology, what would be the equivalent of this experience of love in which not the we as an individual experience love, it's the experience in which the individual ceases to be and there's only the one. It would be what we do in the mornings here, where we abide as pure being. You take the thought, I am, and you allow yourself to be drawn into its referent. And you stand just as pure being, not as an individual self that is merging with pure being, not as a finite being. The finite being longs for pure being, longs to be divested of its limitations and merge with pure being, not as a finite being, but just as being. Because pure being, before it is qualified by experience, is infinite being. And infinite being is God's being. So the very highest devotion, even higher than our longing for God, even higher than our longing for truth or enlightenment, is to stand as infinite, as being, just to stand as being. Because when we stand as being, we are not qualified by any of the limitations that define us as an individual self or an individual being. So when you stand just as being, when you take the divine name, I am, and allow yourself to be drawn into its referent, and as you sink into its referent, our being is divested of all the qualities that it inherits from the content of experience. We stand as being. That's pure love. And it's the ultimate devotion. It's the ultimate surrender, because there is no individual being left to surrender. So that is, in our terminology, the equivalent of what the Sufi refers to as union with God. But it's not really union with God, because there's no self to be united. It's what Balayani calls union without union. You're familiar with that from Ibn Arabi and so, and this is why I said sometime over the last few days that the knowledge I am is the highest knowledge possible. It is higher than the knowledge God is. Because it's only the moth that says the flame is. The flame doesn't know it's a flame. It cannot see itself for the same reason the eyes cannot see themselves. If you ask the flame to tell you about its experience of itself, it won't say the flame is, it'll say I am. It's the moth, another self, another being, that says the flame is. So it's we as finite minds that says God is. But if you ask God about its experience of itself, it will never say God is. Because in order to say God is, it must stand apart from itself. And God cannot stand apart from itself if it's the infinite. Where would it go? So God would say, I am. It's only we, the finite mind, that says God is. So it's not true that God is, or relatively true. What's higher than that is the knowledge I am. And that's why Meister Eckhart prayed to God to rid him of God. It's like the last prayer of the finite mind, to pray to God to rid him of God, so that he might stand as the one, with no other being, no other self, apart from infinite being. That is the ultimate surrender. It's the ultimate prayer. It's the ultimate devotion. And it's pure love, because in that experience there is no other.
It's beautiful. Thank you. Another thing related to this, like the moment that Rumi met Shams, he kind of like, it transformed him through love. And I just wanted to see, like, that's like another way to achieve that higher love that you just talked about, or that's a different kind of concept, love between like two humans?
Well, when Rumi met Shams, Shams told Rumi to throw away all his books and all his learning, and to stop watching YouTube videos. And so he took all that away from him. And then only one object of Rumi's, the infinite remained in the form of one object for Rumi, and that was Shams. So eventually God even took Shams away from him, so that he might stand naked, free, without anything, just as God's being.
Thank you. It's so beautiful. Really appreciate it.